isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creators, where we sit down, often with special guests, and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. Hi, I'm Simon.
I'm Greg.
Together, we are Cinemate Film's two Scottish-based wedding filmmakers who love nothing more than drinking coffee and talking to others in the wedding industry. This podcast is sponsored by PickTime, but I'll get onto that a little bit later in the show. Hi, Greg.
Hello.
Who are we talking to this morning?
We are talking to Andy Hardy. Hello, Andy. How are you doing?
Hey, Andy. Thanks for joining us.
Good. How are you guys? It's a very different time of day where I am.
Yeah,
I'm ready for a beer instead of a coffee. Yeah.
Hey, if you want to crack open a beer, go for it. No, I would just be jealous. Couldn't do that at 9 o'clock in the morning here.
We've got alcohol-free beers. That's as close as we'll get.
Well, they say it's 12 o'clock somewhere here in Australia.
Yeah.
So
how's your day been?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Actually, it's actually really, really funny. I sort of, and I guess we're going to get a lot into this, but I don't shoot that many weddings anymore. But today I was actually editing a wedding.
Oh, really?
Oh,
interesting. Is this one?
Not as
one
many
you had
weddings as
shot?
what I used to shoot, but pardon?
Is this one you had shot?
Yeah, it was my sister's wedding. So it was quite cool. I was a guest, which actually was the second ever. Wait, maybe it's the first. Yeah, I think it was the first ever wedding I've been a guest at. My sister's wedding. I've never been 100% guest, but I wasn't even a proper guest. I was actually only 50% guest because I was photographing it, and then I had like my buddy there filming it with me. So yeah,
okay.
So it was 50%, the closest to a guest that I've ever been, I think.
That's funny because I'm going to be doing that for Greg, who's getting married later this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to be filming his wedding. Do you have any advice for me, Andy?
Well, if you're not getting paid, then like they can't tell you when to stop drinking beers, so that's fun.
That's nice that you did your wedding completely free for your sister. I'm actually charging Greg a little bit of money because I said to him, he asked me, and I was like, no, I want to be a guest. I want to celebrate with you. And he was like, all right, okay. He went back home. A week later, yeah, Claire really wants you to make the film. I'm just like, all right, okay.
Yeah.
There'll be a penalty.
But yeah, you can drink as much as you want.
a cash penalty.
Yeah, I'm terrible. I really probably should have done it for free. Yeah, sorry, Greg.
But also, it is hard to. It's hard to. I always think as well, though. It's like mates pay the rates. You know, at the same time. It's like at the same time as you like have those few people in your life where you're like, oh, I would like help this person out and do this thing for free for them, you know, and I've done that a bunch with like photos and videos over the years for different people. And then you also have to draw a line at a certain point. You're like, fuck, well, otherwise I'm just like filling up my schedule of my life of, you know, every time I sit down at the computer, I don't want to be like editing all these free things. Like, you know, it takes up your life pretty quickly. And, but yeah, at the same time, it's like you want to have those people that you do free things for, but also I think that if someone, you know, and it seems like that's what you guys have done in a sense, it's like your mates pay the rates. It's like you understand and respect that what this person's doing for you is in fact like, you know, a specialist, like it's a career. It's a, for some people, a life choice, you know, what do you call it? But yeah,
you got to feed my kids. Yeah. That's what I call it.
Feed my kids. Feed my kids.
No, I think I was more, I don't know. Greg had asked me, I think during a really busy time, and I think I was just like not in the mindset to be able to take anything else on. Like, I don't know. So I was using it as a kind of like, I don't know, like tariffs, like Trump and tariffs. I was trying to scare you into just not having me do it, but oh well, never mind.
Anyway,
I know people are thinking, man, this guy's a terrible human.
I'm sure I'm sure we'll come back to talking about that recent wedding you shot, but before we go too far, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do more often nowadays, and sort of who you are.
Yeah, totally. So, I guess I'll start a little bit back, but mostly now I mostly do commercial work. I direct and DP commercials and do mostly stuff in the advertising space. I've shot a few short films and stuff, and a variety of dabbled in a lot of different areas in photo and film, I guess. But going back, I guess the way that I sort of made my break was in wedding photography and wedding filmmaking. And I traveled the world shooting films. It was great. Like, I think I've shot over 100 and something weddings sort of in my wedding career, 150, 140, 50 maybe, something like that, in that realm. And I guess I in some ways got lucky really early, and then in other ways worked really hard. Luck's sometimes a fortune of how much you work at it as well. But basically one of my first ever, I was shooting wedding photos for a while and learnt how to run a business in wedding photography, and had some really good mentors like Jesse Hisco, and worked a bit with Ollie in Melbourne as well. And I think Ollie Sansom, and I think my mentors are I learned a lot from them, did photography, and then started doing films. I think my first ever film, Jesse said to me, he said, I need you to do a film at this wedding I'm shooting photos for. And I was like, yeah, no way. He's like, you've been doing that at uni, right? Because I studied photography. And I was like, yeah, totally. I've got it. Anyway, booked me in, and I was like, how to do wedding videos. Just researching, freaking out. And then anyway, I shot this couple's wedding film in Melbourne, and then they were like, hey, we really loved it after I delivered it to them. Went really well. And they were like, we want you to come to Bali and shoot our wedding that we're having there. And turns out these guys were pretty well off, and they were flying all of their friends from China and flying all their friends from university in Australia to Bali. And they got married on the edge of a cliff in a glass church. And we shot this wedding, and it got featured in a bunch of places. And then next thing you know, I was booked out destination wedding photographer. I was doing 5 or 6 countries in a year, most years, for about 5 years, I think. I'd go to 5 or 6 countries, shoot a bunch in Australia, up and down the East Coast and stuff. And got to work with some really cool people in the wedding industry. I shot for Dan O'Day and Kelly Tunney with All Grown Up Weddings for quite a while, and was the only guy doing video at that stage with them. And had really good experiences before breaking into the commercial world, I guess.
Yeah. So when roughly would this have been?
I guess I've been probably full to, I had probably I had a couple of years of 50-50. I was slowly making my way out of the wedding industry, I guess, in some ways, and starting to do more and more commercials, maybe just before COVID. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to do I'm going to try and have a go at this advertising thing and commercial work more so. And then COVID happened. We couldn't. And, no one could do anything. So then I ended up creating an online course, and that was my little COVID pivot. And but I'd say full-time commercial work for at least 5 years, I guess. So start of COVID, probably.
Yeah.
It's weird how we use that as a marker in our lives.
I know.
Now.
I know, yeah.
PC, pre-COVID.
It feels it was only a couple of years ago.
It doesn't feel that long ago.
It's 5 now, though.
Yeah.
It was 5 years now, yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway. But you're right, though. There is that kind of chapter marker. It was the before times.
Yeah.
I like the before times. I was younger, probably happier. Yeah. Was there anything in your wedding work then that you learned, or your wedding journey that you learned, that you apply to your commercial work?
100%. I think And I think that honestly, I've got a young gun sort of assistant. His name's Archer. He's like been working with me for the past couple of years, like in my past production company, Emble Studio, which I was a co-owner of for like 3 years, and then I recently parted ways from those guys. We wanted to do different things, so we went our separate ways. But Archer still lives in the area that I live in. My old business partners moved to another city in Sydney, basically. And yeah, so Archer works with me all the time. He's just got into university, and it's been really fun and interesting working with him, and also like seeing him. He's about to move to Melbourne to go and study at Swinburne Uni, and he's like, oh, like, you know, can I like work with any of the guys you know in Melbourne? Because obviously I've been doing this for like 10 plus 11, 12 years now, and yeah, he's like, can you introduce me to any people? And I was thinking the best thing that he could possibly do is go and shoot weddings, because it teaches you, like, with commercials, you get to be like, and I have 50-50 direct. Sometimes I'm directing only, and then sometimes I'm directing and DPing. But like sometimes, you know, with ads, you're like, all right, cut, go again. Can't do that at a wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, wasn't recording. Missed the kiss. That's not good, you know. Like you can't. It teaches you, I think, you know, to be quick with your head, with your hands, with the camera, to know your gear. Like there is the amount of times I've shot weddings where, you know, if you are like hustling to get from one place to another, you see something happening where you are like automatically changing the settings on your camera, something like that, while you're half running through a crowd of people, not looking at it. Like if there's one thing you can learn at weddings, it's how to use your gear and how to not miss the shot, you know? And I think that has been applied in my commercial work tenfold, where whether it's, you know, I shoot a lot of mini doc content, and, you know, that weddings documentary, you're shooting a documentary, you're documenting, you know? So I think that has applied the most to my documentary filmmaking, mini doc advertising, and then also in advertising with just like the speed of which that I think I'm able to execute stuff compared to a lot of people that, you know, a lot of my competitors or other directors or whatever you want to call it, you know, other people in our field.
Yeah, that's something that we don't do a lot of commercial ourselves, but whenever we have, something we've noticed is the slow pace of commercial, where it's like it takes a lot of setup to get one like 3 second shot, and then there's a lot of setup for the next bit. Whereas when you come from weddings, you're like, you're just go, and you can do everything quick. So it's quite hard to sit around and wait for that setup to happen or to help out on the setup. I know. Did you find that a struggle?
If you need to do a slow push in or something, and you're like running out of light, running out of someone's time, whatever it might be, you just do it 3 times on the gimbal until you get one straight enough that you could warp stabilize, and it's going to look amazing. And then on a commercial, they're like, all right, better start setting up the Dana dolly. It's going to take us an hour. And, we'll see you back in 45. It's like, you know, it's a totally different world. So, but I think it's been fun and good to find the right balance, you know, of like, there's some shots where I'm like, especially when I'm working with editors that I know, or, you know, or even like some projects I'll edit, like I'll direct and edit frequently. And yeah, I think it's like if I know the person or if I'm editing it, it's like I know what I can get away with in some ways. It's like, you know, I can just do a cheeky little push in here on a gimbal or something like that, and it's going to look just as good or something, you know? So, I think the resourcefulness is definitely probably the biggest thing that I've carried through my career from shooting weddings. It's like,
I would
figuring it out.
I would totally agree with you on that. I remember Greg and I decided to do we were part of a unit that was doing a horror film. Do you remember the horror film that we did? And we were just the audio team, because that's how we met in university studying music technology. And we were just like so bored out of our fucking minds while the team were just apparently just doing nothing half the time. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Dude, it's wild. Because you think when you're on a wedding, you're wearing actually so many hats when you realize you are. When you go into commercial, when you're like, they're like, oh, no, you shouldn't be doing that as the director. Like, that's actually the producer should be doing that. And you're like, well, geez, I used to produce. Like, if I had to do something on the wedding, I could produce that myself. Okay, cool. And then they're like, oh, no, you shouldn't touch that. That's actually, the AC. He'll take home the equipment and make sure it's ready to go on set in the morning. You're like, oh, I used to charge all my own batteries on weddings, you know? Like you realize that there's somebody for everything, which depending on the scale of the production though, is sometimes like a blessing and then also sometimes a curse. Cause and I think that's been one of my superpowers in sort of like doing commercial work is like I have the ability to run as a really nimble team with me and like a couple of guys that I trust, and between us we're like grips, gaffs, do everything. We're our own ACs, you know, like do the lot with like a very minimal team and make it look like a proper production that had 20 people on it. And then on the flip side, I've been on productions that have had 20, 30, nearly probably I'd say mid 30 to 40 people on it, and it's like when it's running at a hot pace and you're like, okay, cool, this is actually really good if it's a well-oiled machine and you've got a lot of people you know and, you know, it's good.
Yeah. Do you remember the TV show, what was it? House of Thrones? No? Game of Thrones. And there was that scene that was still in TV show, but there was like a Costa coffee cup there.
Right.
I sometimes think that on these bigger productions, it's too many cooks and they're spoiling the broth. Because I remember being on that film that we were working on, and there was a water bottle in the background. And I seemed to be the only one who could see it, but that wasn't my role. So we recorded the whole we recorded the whole scene, and then after everyone was like, yeah, we got it, I then was like, oh, so we're moving on with the water bottle in the background. And obviously it wasn't my job. I got told off for mentioning it in the first place, even though we just shot the scene. But the other guy also got bollocks because it was his job to check the set and he didn't do it properly. I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, these things in like Game of Thrones, that's how that kind of shit happens. It is someone's job and they've just missed it, and I'm sure everyone else is just oblivious. They're doing their own thing, and then so which is wild.
You mentioned that like COVID was a turning point for the direction of your business, but you'd been doing like commercial 50-50 with weddings before that?
Yeah. So yeah, totally. Like I've been shooting commercials definitely at the same time as shooting weddings. Like I was like shooting weddings on the weekend and then like doing advertising work during the week.
Yeah.
And it was pretty full on, but also it was sort of, I mean, I'd gotten to a point with weddings where I think like, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I mean, if like when I was fresh out of university, started shooting wedding photos, and like pretty much I was probably one of the earlier, if not one of the first people in Melbourne, in maybe Australia, doing photography and video weddings myself.
Right.
So not like I'm shooting video and then I've got a second shooter shooting photos. I was A-cam photo, A-cam video, and then I would normally have like a multimedia shooter shooting with me that was capable of doing both. Okay. And I just basically towards the end of my time shooting, and I was sort of started doing that because I think basically I had a few people, Dan O'Day being one of them, said, you can't do that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to show you that I can.
Yeah.
Biggest driving force for me, I think, has always been when people say, you can't do that. And then he was just like, you won't be able to do that. One of them is going to, and then even one of my mentors was like, his thing was one of them is going to like take a hit. Like one of them is going to be sacrificed and not going to be as good as the other. And I'm like, I'm going to show you. And so I basically did that the whole time and then slowly weeded out my packages to just be like, you can't book me for photo or video. You can only book me for both.
Yeah.
And it was great because like couples were getting a discount on their services instead of having to find a photographer and a videographer. I got so sick of shooting with videographers if I was shooting stills that had a totally different style than what I did. Like whether they were like, now look down at the ring and out the window and back at me. And I'm like trying to do doco style photography. Yeah. And then I'm just stressing out thinking this couple's going to be, they booked me for my style of like what I do. And they're not going to get that because this guy's directing them, you know? Yeah. And so anyway, and then vice versa for video. Like if I was shooting video and then a photographer was like posing the whole time and not doing any natural organic movements or getting a couple or people to interact. So I get so frustrated with it. So I was like, no, you can only book me for photo and video. And did that for ages. And then I won like I got like top 10 emerging wedding photographers in Australia for Rangefinder like that year. And it was like, or like one of those later years. So it was like just, yeah, it seemed to be the way to go. And it was great fun. And also, you know, not only like were the couple getting a discount, but I could shoot a wedding in a day. And it was like I was doing 2 weddings in that weekend, you know?
Yeah.
Nearly, you know, just about. For me as a solo shooter. So, with an assistant, with a paid assistant. So, yeah, it was an interesting and fun little journey doing that. And yeah, anyway, I feel like I've just started rambling and gotten lost of what the original question was. But
I'm just imagining you like having that success and then texting O'Day be like, yeah, fuck you, man. Fuck you, I did it.
No, I think what happened was I got this like top 10 emerging like listed as like one of the things and that was when I was like, I'm going to go and do commercials. That was what it was. I think it was just like, I was like, okay, in my mind, like looking back in my mind, I was like, I didn't need to win best wedding photographer in Australia or something, but I was just kind of like, okay, cool. I've done that. Like I'm doing that and I've done that and I know how to do that now. And I've been partially somewhat recognized for it. I don't need to be the best, but I can go and move on and try the next thing, you know, in my mind. I think looking back now is probably one of the things and reasons
so was that like
why I did that.
Was that like a confidence in the fact that I can always come back to this? It's always going to be the bread and butter. I'll try this side job of commercial and see how that develops.
Which it was at the time. It was definitely a side job because I was like, whoa, this is way more of a hustle because you don't know, and I still don't know a lot of the time, like what's happening next week, 2 weeks. You're just like, fuck, I hope I get some gigs. And like, I'm constantly like, I've got little, you know, things people I'm reaching out to, planting some seeds here, planting some seeds there. I've got a little personal project I might be able to G up and, you know, get some funding for or something. But you have to be a lot more on it in that sense of like weddings. It was like, oh, sweet. Got my deposit booked out for this weekend. I know like 6 to 8 months, 12 months in advance, you know, like what your sort of income's looking like. And that just is not what happens in advertising, you know? Like I was in Derby the other day. I was like in this little mountain biking town here in Tasmania. I'm on sort of a semi-vacay right now with my partner, and we had a couple of friends down there, and we're mountain biking and stuff. And I was literally just talking. They're like, someone was like, when's your next job? I was like, I don't know. I'm on vacay. I don't care. Whatever. And then literally got this text message, and they were like, hey, I know it's Thursday, but can you be in Saturday and shoot an ad with this guy, the Demon, Alex de Minaur? He's like Australian tennis player. They're like, can you be, because the Australian Open, the tennis was on. They're like, can you be in Melbourne on Saturday, shoot this ad with the Demon? And I'm like, hey guys, this is my first job of the year. You know, you just like have this like 3 days out, you know?
Yeah.
So that sort of stuff I think happens all the time, you know, but you just don't have the foresight.
Yeah. So thinking back to when you were first deciding, right, I'm going to try out some commercial, how did you go about getting those first clients? Like, what was that transition like?
You know, one of the cool things I think about shooting weddings and doing commercials was I actually booked so many random jobs from like weddings. Like people being like, hey, I think one of my first decent sized, I guess by decent size, I mean the first time I'd been paid more than what I was getting paid to shoot a wedding for like a commercial, like a piece of, you know, commercial like work, was literally a couple that tried to book me for their wedding and they couldn't. And then they were like, hey, do you have, and then I'd shot one of their friends' weddings. And then I think I chatted with them at the wedding and whatever. I didn't really mention anything. And then they emailed me and were like, hey, we saw you at this wedding. We actually really wanted to book you. You weren't available. And then we ended up getting these other guys. We still really love your vibe and want to work with you. Can you come and do like do you do advertising, like commercial stuff? We want you to do like a whole end-to-end sort of like campaign for our osteopathy business. We have 2 clinics, like one in Melbourne in the CBD and then one out in Wagga Wagga, which is like out of town, like 3.5 hours, like very rural, but like one of the largest rural cities in Australia.
Right.
So it's pretty big sort of, and they're the only osteopathy clinic. So they are like have a pretty thriving business. And so anyway, that was like literally from a wedding, you know, and then I had a few other ones where I did a job for the Bank of Melbourne, from a wedding, which was like pretty weird that connection happened. And yeah, there's a slew of them that had just happened from like networking and chatting with people at weddings when I should probably otherwise have been taking dance floor photos.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just chatting. You know, it's funny. I don't think I've actually seen a wedding film of yours, and I was just trying because you don't have them on your website, right?
Yeah.
So I was just trying to Google it right there, and I realized there's a podcast here with Studio Ninja, which I haven't listened to. It's why being a good person is the best business tool. And then when you were talking about networking, I think a lot of people struggle with networking actually because they see it as such a almost like a business trade, you know. And I think for many wedding suppliers, they're more creative minded than business minded. And I think maybe networking like even the term networking has a connotation of like, I don't know, corporate boardroom, like sitting down, or here's my business card, too official. Yeah. So what was your approach then to networking? And do you have any advice for people who struggle?
Totally, 100%. I think just like and now I think about it, I didn't put that link in there for you guys to listen to. That was a while ago. I forgot all about that one.
I mean, there's actually
been, so it was a while ago, hey. So I was sort of ambassador for Studio Ninja, like in their early days, and basically what I think, if I'm to wrap up, essentially what a lot of what we talked about in that chat, it's, I guess, coming into every room just thinking like, and this was probably one of the best bits of advice that I was given too, was just like going into every room as if like whoever you chat to could be the next person that employs you, you know? Like they could be the next person that you don't know what any of these people like. And going to a wedding is like, not only is it like case study of the human race, because you're hanging out with 100 different people every weekend, you get all sorts of people. But the other thing is, I think it's like an incredible networking opportunity where you could have any one of those people in that room book you for their wedding, recommend you for their sisters, brothers, whoever's wedding in their family. They also, if they just like your vibe, could be like, hey, do you shoot photos of pets? I have a pet food company, or whatever the brand is that they have. They could just be like, hey, do you do videos or photos outside of weddings, you know? And I think just like approaching every chat, not thinking like that in a sense of like, oh, this person could hire me. Hey, sir, my name's Andrew and I do great products, you know? It's like just approaching it in a sense of like, you know, if you're tired from the day, if you haven't eaten yet, it's like, think about, it's like the flip side of you never know what someone's been through in that day. And it's like the flip side of that, like, I don't want anyone to know in terms of in that space where you're professionally working. Like, I think there's a space to be, okay, I'm not feeling so good. I'm hanging out. I want to have a chat with my friends about not feeling great. I'm not feeling 100%. But like in that environment, I think it's just like, I'm just trying to show up as 100% organically and, you know, myself, and also just kind of being like, yeah, just there to engage and be present and not bring any of my baggage in. I don't know. It's a really convoluted, I've given you a very convoluted answer, but I think it's I think some parts of that are very true of like, you know, just showing up and chatting to each and every person like they could be your employer, you know?
Yeah.
Or your new best friend.
Or your new best friend. Yeah, that's I genuinely feel like when I started to view people as just like friends I haven't met yet, it became so much more easy to network. Although I'm terrible with names. I'm not gonna lie. Like if I forget your name, it's not names. Like it's not you, it's me. I'm just an idiot. I cannot remember anyone's name, but I'll remember your face till the day I die. Yeah. So, you know, it's funny when you were talking about you shooting photos and film at a wedding, like. It only seems to be a recent thing over here, anyway, in the UK, that hybrid teams or hybrid shooters have become
became a
popular.
Thing, like 3-4 years ago, it did become a thing, but then it seemed to die out a wee bit, but it's coming back.
So you guys don't have many multimedia shooters or whatever you...
No. Well,
what did you call it a second ago, sorry?
So it's a hybrid.
Hybrid, yeah.
Yeah, that because I like even when you're telling me that that's how you did things. That term you probably wouldn't have heard of that term. It's everywhere now.
Yeah.
But what did you call yourself?
I just had listed. I was just like, what did I say actually? I think all my keywording on my website and everything was definitely like still talked about photography and film or photography and videography or whatever. But I think in the throes of it, it was just basically just like I document weddings. I capture your day and turn it into like an heirloom, you know. It was around that sort of language and stuff. I actually have where is it? I think I've got it pretty handy actually. If I search for it, I could give you like a little snapshot of the language probably, because I think I've got my like pricing guide somewhere on my website, on my computer.
Oh, right, okay.
This will be fun to look at. I haven't looked at this for a while.
While you do that, let's see if you can multitask. Can you tell our listeners like where in the market you felt like you fitted in? Like were you low, mid, high range pricing wise?
What do we consider as low, mid, high? I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna just let you kind of.
There's a lot of disparity between the US dollar, Australian dollar, UK pounds.
Yeah, I was gonna let you kind of self-define that. Like where do you like? What kind of ways do you think you were kind of hitting there?
Yeah, I mean, I can be straight up and just tell you what I was charging, really, because without being coy about it. Because I also think one thing as well that I guess I believe is. I feel like so many people are like scared to talk about money, you know? And I think that, like, I've done a lot of, and you guys would definitely know, and he's a really good friend of mine, Jai Long.
Yep.
You would know about Jai and the Wedding Summit and stuff, right?
Yep. He's been on the podcast. Yep.
He's been on the podcast.
He has.
I'll have to go back and listen to that episode. But, we've had great chats. And I mean, of course, if you follow him nowadays and you see he's sort of shifted slightly more towards business as a general practice rather than just weddings, you know? Yeah, and we always chatted about, like, people just being scared to talk about money and, like, how much do you charge? How much do you make? Whatever. Like, I think it's actually really potentially more healthy to talk a little bit more openly about it, because I think people can learn something. Like, it doesn't need to be this fucking mysterious thing, you know? Anyway, beside the point, with that, I think at the time of when I stopped doing weddings, I was $4,400 for photos, $5,500 for video, and then $8,800 for photo video.
Okay.
So where's that? Is that mid to high?
What's the conversion?
Yeah, you convert
4,400. Let's go 8,800. 8,800.
to pounds, or
I've just lost the window.
£4,500 to £5,000.
Yeah, so that's like the upper end, I would say. Yeah.
No, that's mid-range, high to mid, right?
Yeah.
After speaking to some people who have a team and they shoot in Tuscany and they charge like 50K, like that
50.
Yeah,
that's high. That's high end.
Yeah.
I think when I was shooting, like, I remember hearing of some photographers that were, like, charging in the realms of like 10K Aussie dollars for just photo or just video, and I was like, that seemed high end to me. I was like, you know, I felt like that was high end, but also, like, in terms of, like, they're one person or two people or whatever. Like, it's a normal crew. Like, you're paying $8,800 and getting me in a second for photo and video. And then I knew some people that were charging $10,000 for them and another person as well. It's the same operation. 50K, I can understand. It's like not even really classed as high end. It's a production at that point.
Yeah.
You know, you've got 50 people. It's not the same realm, really.
Yeah. But they had a team of 5.
Yeah, 5 or 6. Yeah,
5 or 6. So, you know, you've got those kind of big overheads and stuff. But,
but what?
And were they good? Was it good?
I mean, that was just photography.
Was the film incredible?
It's just photography.
It's just photography?
Yep.
Yeah. So how did you come up with that pricing structure then? So you obviously had your photo and your video, and when you decided, I'm going to do both together, and that's what I want to do, you obviously just went, right, well, I'll add them both together and take $1,000 off, or was there more thought to it? Like, I need to...
Well, that was one thing. That was probably the first and foremost thing. It was like the whole add them both together and then get a discount, like, in there. And that felt like an achievable discount for me, where it was like, in terms of, like, if I was shooting 2 individual weddings, like, that $1,000, like, I'm not just giving them straight, here's $1,000 off. In my mind, I was like, okay, if I shot 2 individual weddings, I would spend $500 on traveling there and back anyway, you know, most of the time. Like, and not just, like, in terms of I have to get a $200 and something flight and $300 accommodation somewhere, and which most of the time which all of the time I would charge for. I mean, in the early days, like, you know, you do a lot of destination weddings. People are like, oh, we don't have the budget for travel, but we really want you. Like, well, I really want to do it. So you would sometimes, you know, do a little couple of those every now and then. But I think, anyway, so my mindset was just like $200 flight, $300 accommodation, don't have to go anywhere, same day. Also not the the opportunity cost of like another day, don't have to spend the time going somewhere else. So it was partially that as well. But then also the main thing, which I think should be probably like realistically any good, sorry, I had a side thought then.
If you want to meander down your side thought, you go for it.
No. I think the other thing was just like any other good business is like price testing, okay, cool. People are booking at that rate. Let's put it up. And this do the same thing in commercial, partial supply and demand. Like there's only one of me. I'm getting booked. I'm getting hit up for a shitload of jobs. Geez, maybe I should be charging a little bit more. Yep. And then the other thing is like, put it up. Oh shit. Not very many people are booking at this rate. I better bring it down a little bit. Oh yeah, cool. People are booking at this, So it's like supply and demand of like, because if you are booked out working all the time, like one, is that what you want to do? And then two, like I think the other thing is just like, just seeing this fun thumb.
What is that?
What is that? So I think partial is like, part of it is like, if you're booked out working all the time, do you want to live like that, or do you want to like work less and get paid more? Like what are you trying to do? Are you doing weddings or commercial work or any type of work? If you're your own boss and your own, like, basically if you're your own boss, then like what's the goal here? Like, are you doing it because if you don't do anything else, you're going to spontaneously combust and explode and you just like have to do that thing? Or are you doing it because you love it and you want to improve at that thing? Mm-hmm. Or like, do you feel like you're at a level where you can charge more and work less? And I think that like, in any business, if you're the owner, operator, like that should essentially be the goal, is like, what if other people are booking you out so much, then maybe they're valuing your services higher than what you are.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Pricing has always been an interesting one. We actually kind of take a sort of a flexi approach. We will
flexi approach. We just have a pay pass, and it's pay what you want. Whatever you want. We take coins. We take all sorts of currencies, loonies, toonies, Aussie dollars. Doesn't matter.
Even just compliments. Just tell me I'm a nice guy. Why do you think I'm charging Greg to shoot his wedding? I'm like, he doesn't give me enough compliments.
Compliment him.
But it's like,
dude, there you go. You could be getting their wedding for free if you just like G'd him up every now and then. Like,
you're great,
Greg. Oh, too late now. You have to pay
your mustache is looking great today, by the way.
See, you could learn a couple of things, Greg.
Sorry,
honestly. It's just like a marriage between Greg and I, because we've been together for like 15 years.
Yep.
I mean, it's a business arrangement, but still, that all the words I'm describing here don't sound. All right, I'm moving on. Anyway, so the whole flexible thing is like, for example, like we're pretty high in the market here anyway for just doing video. But there's a couple who got in contact and they sounded amazing, and they're going to this wedding venue, and we've got a very good connection with this wedding venue, and they are actually related to the owners, and so we more or less have just like halved our price, haven't we?
Yeah,
for
at the same
guys.
time removing things from the package.
So yes, of course, But we've actually been
there's movement
instead of in this has been the year, or this will be the year of testing out not the price going up, but actually just taking things away from what we offer. Because I feel like I'm just stuck at my computer editing a lot. Like throughout the summer, I need to be really strict on myself to not just be like sitting in front of the computer at 9 o'clock at night, just being like editing away. So we've been taking away stuff from the package, and this is the year of testing for us, I would say.
The only thing that scared me about taking stuff away from the package was like, and this happened to me, was like with the photo and video, it was like, you know, they got the highlight reel, the speeches and the like the ceremony and the speeches, like just nothing fancy, just like it's just rolled from a tripod angle, you know, with like nice lapel audio, backup audio source, whatever.
Yep.
And then, yeah, like that was what they got with the wedding, with the video. And they got like a raw uncut thing where I just put all the clips with some nice songs that, like, you know, if they wanted to recommend some songs. So it was like relatively simple, and it all worked a part of the process because, like, as you know, you'd like, you know, you've already culled everything for your wedding. So like, why not? Why do they not get that? They can have that. I'm like, whatever. But what happened was, I just want the highlight reel only. Oh, okay, cool. Shoot the whole thing. Oh, you know what? We actually decided we'd really love a cut of the ceremony and the speeches. Like, well, don't have that, do I? Didn't bring a tripod. Just shot the whole. Because, like, well, why would I do that? If I'm dropping stuff off the package and charging less money, first of all, first thing that's going to go, if I'm just doing video, if I was just doing video, first thing that's going to go, assistant. There you go. You've saved like between $500 and $1,000, you know? So you're like, bang, assistant, no assistant. Well, who's going to run the tripod? I'm not going to run around running the tripod and shooting B-roll because I've tried that before and it's a good way to miss something.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, all right, cool, no tripod. All right, cool. Well, I'll just run the audio recorder. That's easy. I can lapel them, run the audio into the recorder, record it, still got audio for like layover of like during the highlights and stuff. Great. But yeah, then they're like, wow, you've got the audio in there. Can we grab the whole thing? I'm like, no, you can't. They're like, what if we pay extra? I'm like, no, you can't because it doesn't exist because you said you didn't want it at the start. And I shaved $2,500 off of a package for you, you know?
Yeah. Well, so this is how our approach has differed because I'm acutely aware of that potential issue. And so the stuff is like, we actually will capture everything as normal. It's only in what the delivery, and the delivery is the baseline has got like, so we used to do like a 15 to 20 minute feature film. That's now coming right down to 6 to 10. Yep. So already that's like days worth of my time. Because those highlight films I put a lot of effort into, but we still do the ceremony and speeches just in case they add it on. And adding it on it's an added price, but it's still going to be there. And because there's two of us, we can do the audio, like you said, lapel them. Usually how we do it is Greg is on like two angles at the one time, like a wide, a very safe wide, some are off to the side, and then it's a focus on what I call the documentary angle. So if it was like the down the aisle shot, and I'm roaming around, so it's like a bit of both worlds. And I suppose that is the benefit of having two people, like you said, get rid of your assistant.
All I'm thinking as you're saying that is just like, instead of like what I was saying before, where I'm like, oh, you know, I just so I'm just checking my audio still. Or I think. What I was saying before was, you know, with my pricing and, you know, putting it up and testing it and being like, oh, okay, cool. People are booking. People aren't booking. I've gone too far. I'm going to bring the price back down a little bit. Like figure out, if you don't know your own value, then I think like doing that exercise is really good to figure out what people are valuing your work at, you know, in that sort of sense, especially in a competitive market like wedding industry, you know. But one thing that I'm just listening to you say that, I'm just like, dude, you guys should do the opposite and just slowly start bringing that feature film length back. Just bring it back, scale it back, because that must take you so much time. And if you're on the upper end of wedding, you know, mid to upper end of wedding photographers where you guys are, I'd be scaling back that and just be like, sweet, how far can we bring this back before people don't want, before it's no longer a feature length film, you know?
Yeah.
Let's get that puppy down.
Yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing will be, I mean, yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing will be where hybrid shooters, because they are going to be offering little highlight films, and okay, they won't be as good with the audio, but they'll still produce a little highlight film that is almost the same length as what we'll be doing.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I feel like content creators now are coming in and documenting the full speeches, full ceremony. Photographers are now coming in and doing the highlight films. So I'm like, all right, maybe it's time to be hybrid and just try and be better than everyone. And that's my goal. I will learn photography way better than I already do it. I'll learn Flash. I mean, I'll learn Flash for God's sake.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I don't want to be doing commercial stuff. Me personally. I'll do it for like other smaller brands and stuff if they have an interesting story. But
one of the parts that with commercial work that we dipped our toe in it and realized that it's not where we want to be going. And one of the bits was the pitching for jobs. So how do you have to do that, or is it mainly jobs
definitely
coming to you?
A whole mixture. Oh.
Why? What's happened
Something
to
just
the
happened
light?
to the lights, yeah.
You're in darkness.
Let me have a little quick look at that. Is that okay?
Yeah,
or are we
go for
going to
it,
roll
man.
like this? Or should I?
It's okay.
Or
I'll
should
edit
I
it
just? I was like, dude. What was your question? Sorry.
It was like, so how do you find the pitching for jobs and creating proposals for commercial work?
Yeah, cool. Okay. Let me just check this light and hold that thought, and you have to cut.
I'll cut it. I'll make it smooth.
Oh, yeah. No, we're all good.
Okay, what happened?
I was like, I thought the power went out, but then I was like, no, the monitor's still on.
Yeah.
Oh, it just it's basically I'm using a Funny you say that. Literally, as you said, I'll learn Flash. I'm using a Profoto B10X as a video light.
Wow.
So it's you've used this light before or seen it? It's like
I know of it, yeah.
You basically can color temp change. It's the best small light for like if I'm traveling somewhere and I'm like, I don't really know if I'm going to be like if I'm traveling somewhere. A lot of the time, this has started since doing commercials. Like. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've got a job. There's my phone. I don't think I've got a job, but then I'll just pack this light because it's so small. Yeah. And like you can get away with it as a video light. Definitely not in a big room, but if it's dark, you can. Like it looks fun, looks good, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But hey, let's go back to what was your question? Sorry. Your question was how do I go about pitching? Do I have to do it?
Yeah, like how do you find that process of creating proposals for potential jobs and pitching for new jobs? Like how do you find that and how do you go about it? Yeah.
Look, I think just like it's such a random mixture of like I definitely don't have one like streamlined, like this is how I get my work. Like so much of it is like goes back to that Studio Ninja podcast, like where you were saying it's like, you know, just being a good person is the best marketing strategy, you know. Like I haven't done any, and I really probably should do some marketing for myself, and I've tried different things like, you know, advertising with these guys, Production Paradise, which I think might even be from over your way maybe. But anyway, tried advertising with different crews and then tried being on like, you know, freelancer websites and stuff like that. But I just word of mouth, just like as in I have, and it's just escalated. It's like it started as word of mouth from like, oh, I did the cool video for the osteopathy clinic. And then all of a sudden I'm like, you know, doing not a coffee shop, but like a coffee brand, you know, like, oh, they like brew and make their own coffee and do this sort of stuff and whatever. And then, you know, and it's like, they're actually like a pretty reasonable brand and then whatever. And then it just works its way up to then all of a sudden it's like, you know, you start doing agency work, and then it's just like agencies and production companies are recommending you. And it's like, you know, I do an ad for Denizen, which is like an Australian, I don't know if you know about Denizen. They have a pretty funny ad actually, which I was on, and I was on the remake of this ad, but the whole ad is like, they sneeze. It's hay fever medication. They're like, Denizen, and do this sneeze. And it's like, anyway, so I was on the remake of that ad. I didn't actually direct it. I was doing I just missed out, apparently just missed out on directing it. And then, but still got hired from the agency to do all of the social bits and do the billboards and photography. And so I was on that set shooting multimedia just like I used to at weddings, and that's what I do a shitload of now still, is like going along and doing photo and video on different jobs. And I have the same ethos of doing that as what I did when I was doing weddings, which was like, hey, your wedding can turn into a media circus. Why not just have one person with one style that is not going to get in the way of anyone? So same thing with me with like doing that sort of thing, you know? So anyway, and I go and do this thing for Denizen, and I was kind of like bottom of the barrel, like not, you know, there was a 30-person crew, and I'm shooting the socials and photos, just being like, I wish I should be directing this. And I was getting treated, and I was getting treated like absolute dog shit as well. But then I was so nice to the producer and the agency that hired me, like just not so nice intentionally, but I was just like, hey, it's all right. I'm down here, bottom of the barrel. Like I was shooting in one part of this ad. I was in the room and I had 5 minutes between takes to shoot the billboard. And the billboard was a 22-meter billboard that goes across the Hume Highway, a collective 9 lanes, side to side, like 22 meters. And I had less than 5 minutes, probably 3 minutes to shoot this billboard shot. And with I got to use a little bit of their lighting setup, but I had to relight some stuff, use flash, and do a stitch of this room to make it like super wide. And I'll drop you the still actually, and you can post it on what I don't know how you use it, but anyway, basically a assistant director came into the room and just and just knocked on the wall and looked at me because he came in once. He was like, when will you be done? And I was like, I need a couple more minutes. Like, this is for the billboard part of this bit. And he's like, okay. And he just went outside. He came back in and he just sat there and knocked until I stopped. And I was like, so bottom of the barrel, but I was still just like, it's fine. I don't know what these guys are going through. I don't know how shitty their day's been. He's clearly being a fucking he's sorry about my language, but he's being an arsehole to me, being very rude. And I was like, and I'm trying to do my job. And even though I'm not directing, it was like I was still like paid to be there, and it was not a cheap component of the shoot still. And and so I was just like, all right, super nice to everybody. And then the next thing you know, the producer's like, hey, I've got 7 videos for MasterCard I need you to shoot this year. And I'm like, sick. Awesome. And it just lined me up for like, you know, I basically banged that out in a, you know, it was a great client, great shoot. I directed it and DP'd it, and I didn't even have to edit it. And it was like a great shoot to do, you know, to lock in 7 videos for a brand like that. And that was purely because I was just happy-go-lucky guy hanging out. You know? I'm like, hey, you can knock on my door all you want, but I'm not moving until that stitch looks pristine. So knock away, buddy.
And that same approach translates to like weddings as well, because a lot of photographers or filmmakers might be a bit too big-headed and be like, I don't want to shoot that venue, or I don't want to shoot that venue again. But if you take the approach of, well, I don't know where it could lead me, if I just be nice to them, do a good job for them, you might book a wedding
that literally happens
huge
to
venue.
I'm pretty sure I can't pinpoint the venues and the spaces, but I'm pretty sure that literally happened to me once. I was like, oh, not this place again. And then I went and shot it. And then the next thing you know, the couple, because I had like and I'm sure you guys would have it as well. I had a slew of like, I think I'd shot 5 bridesmaids or 6 bridesmaids weddings, like from this one wedding. And it was just like, and then I'd shot like every bridesmaid, like all of their weddings, and they just got like better and better and better and more fun and more fun. And it was like, you know, and I remember, I think actually I do remember the locations now. It was like, I shot this wedding, a venue that I'd shot a bunch of times before, and I was like, I'm not stoked on this. And then literally from that, the couple came up to me like, we were just talking about it. We couldn't remember your name from the last time we saw you. We've hired out half of the Melbourne Zoo, and we're flying all of our folks, all of our fam and everything from Dubai to Australia. And they like literally got half the Melbourne Zoo and turned it into their wedding venue, and had like private tours around the Melbourne Zoo with their bridal party and stuff. And I was like, that was so fun. I never would have gotten to like shoot a wedding inside of a zoo if I didn't go to this like venue that I'd shot 100 times, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we had a similar situation actually. It's there's so obviously we're part of many online communities, and there's this venue over here. I won't say the venue name, but it's at the butt of every joke. It's like a wedding machine.
Yeah, it's a wedding factory.
It's a wedding factory.
Oh, and, we have one of those in Melbourne.
we obviously we knew of its reputation, but we decided, you know, this couple seemed cool. And we went and we shot there. And it wasn't as bad as what people made out. I mean, there was another wedding. It was fine. It was fine. Anyway, what we created was so good in the couple's eyes that they were just so happy to have us. And they had their friends that they had made a Texan couple, and they liked the film so much, and we're obviously, again, really nice guys on the wedding. They flew us out to Austin, Texas to shoot their family and get involved in their celebration. It was just like a really nice compliment. So, you know, it's funny how, like, I don't know. Just be a nice person.
Yeah.
Just be a nice person.
Just be nice.
Work.
Just be nice.
And you
make good stuff, be nice.
Yeah. I don't know why it's so hard. I don't know. We're going to interrupt this podcast to bring you an advertisement for PickTime. Our buddies at PickTime, we love PickTime. If you want to elevate your business, PickTime's maybe the way to do it.
It's an online gallery delivery service.
It's a really good looking one, which is initially how we got into the service. It just looks better than all the other kind of platforms that we personally use.
Yeah. We've over time got to know the owners, got to know the people behind it. Lovely people, great support system there as well.
There's just so many tools at your fingertips with PickTime, but the marketing and the blogs and the slideshow features.
Yeah, there's so much more than just a gallery delivery service. You've got all those things that Simon was talking about. You can create your own blog from it. You can create slideshows. One new feature that I really love is the vendor network. It's where you can use AI to curate a gallery for a specific supplier. So you could use AI to gather all the photos of the flowers and send them to the florist, and they would have that gallery specific just for them.
It's kind of a mind-blowing feature.
Yeah.
And we might as well be taking advantage of AI before the uprising and it starts taking advantage of us. So let's just all bear that in mind.
Yeah, and not to mention the built-in store, and that way you can just make more money while also having a nice, aesthetically pretty gallery.
Yeah. And if you want to sign up today, you can get a free month if you use Perspective at checkout.
Yeah.
So if you want to test it out for free for a month, go for it.
Take your business to the next level with PickTime. In your commercial work now, what is your setup? Are you complete freelance, or do you operate as a production company? Do you have people that work with you?
Yeah, I basically I have had 2 different production companies in the last 5 or 6 years, 6 years. Yeah, 6 years, I guess, was probably my heart of my commercial work. Feel & Films was my first production company that I did. Was still shooting weddings while I was doing that. That was just myself, and I had a full-time or permanent part-time editor, Jeff, who was doing I think it was 3 or 4 days a week editing. And And then I had my right-hand man, Jade, who, Tassie guy, just actually went to, this is super cool because he moved to Melbourne to work with me, worked with me at Phelan for like 2 years, and then was sort of really just like learning the ropes of filmmaking. Like he was okay, but he'd like had a lot of like business and like, I think probably composition, and there was a lot of things that he was still learning a lot at the time. And since I've been down here in Tasmania, which is where I grew up, and I've been down here for a week on this like riding trip, like I was saying, with my girlfriend and some mates and stuff. And he just did his first ever short film and it was played at the cinema. It was pretty cool to go and see because we parted ways from that company, and he's now doing really cool things. The film's called Yellow Eye. You guys it'll come out online pretty soon. A very interesting story about kids with cancer from the perspective of the parents, or from the outside perspective, which is I think that it's a lot of the time told from the perspective of the person who is sick. So it was an interesting perspective on like how he did it from the outside looking in. So. And the director is a survivor of childhood cancer. So anyway, cool film. You should go and watch it. He did.
Is the director Harry Radbone? Is that right?
Yes, that's it.
Right. Okay. Cool. I've got the film.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then Jade Higgs is the DP. So yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway, I've done that thing where I rambled and I forgot the question.
So Phelan Films, and then your next production company was
Emble?
And then the next production company was Emble.
Yeah.
Emble Studios. So myself and Jared and Jacinta was 3 partners, and we had really cool, big, cool, rad studio space in Bright up in the high country. We lived 3.5 hours out of Melbourne, so we weren't anywhere near the city, and we did a shitload of commercial work. So people always like, how did you find doing it in the country? What were you shooting? And people always ask me, like, what do you do in Bright? And I'm like, not heaps, actually. Like, mostly ride mountain bikes and go snowboarding in winter, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
sounds great.
I live out there for the lifestyle, and then just always just travel to Melbourne and Sydney and shoot commercials there. And then,
Yeah.
That's the vibe. Just travel for, like, it's like all of my commercials over the last 4 years, all my advertising stuff has just been like Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, like up and down the east coast of Australia. Like, it didn't matter where I was anymore. And even if I was in Melbourne, it wouldn't have made a difference. And the other thing is that I found living out of the city, it's like you get stricter about your own pricing. Cause like, you know, you're not just like, they have a couple of grand less, or they only can afford half of what I want to charge for that project. I am here. I'll probably do it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't do that at all. I'm just like, well, here's my rates, and if you want me to come and do it, then, and you value me and my time and my direction and my, you know, concepts and whatever, then they'll pay.
Yeah.
I'm
looking at your show reel here. Were you shooting Spitfires? That looked cool.
Yeah, that's my housemate. My housemate Jack, he is a pilot, and his dad has like him and his family have like a collection of planes at Albury, which is like only an hour away from our house in the mountains. So Jack and I live up in Bright, which is like base of the Victorian ski fields, and we have really good mountain biking, great snowboarding in winter, great hiking all year round. Really beautiful place. So then, we normally just like cruise an hour from our place into Albury, which is like the closest airport, and his dad and him and his family business have a hangar there, and they have a Spitfire. And
it makes your product. I mean, all your visuals are absolutely stunning, but when you see a plane, you're like, oh. I don't know why that just, it's like the production value goes a bit higher when you're like, oh, okay.
There's a great shot from one of those shoots where like, because I mean, it's like, you know, you see that shot and you're like, wow, that looks pretty cool. And then you don't really think about, I've got this great behind the scenes shot of, just like I just was filming my buddy in the backseat and then turn around and it's just the red with the gimbal and it's like so tight in the cockpit of this other plane. And then I'm like, turn this way and there's no door on the plane. So you just like literally, you're just attached to the gimbal and then just like literally looking at a monitor, just driving it with the joystick because it's got to shoot over your shoulder. You know, so it's a tight little space sometimes.
Yeah,
but we shoot a bunch of random different stuff. So
your show really looks really cool, I have to say. You know, you've got some gym footage here. I always find that shooting gyms is really difficult because most of the time they're in little dungy. Like they've got no windows, and you're just like, all right, well, I'll put a light somewhere, and it's like, oh, my client's not used to lights. I'm like, what? Funny.
Now that was for you're probably looking at some of the LSKD stuff, which was like a biopic. They were like mini docs that we did on mini documentaries that we did on the like athletes that the like LSKD athletes. So we had we had time to set up that stuff. I think we did like a day. It was like a day of interiors and then like a day of exteriors. Like each of them were like 2-day shoots.
Yeah. I remember during
a good amount of time. And also the other thing with that, sorry to jump in, was like just thinking about what shot you might be looking at. It's like without seeing what you're looking at, it's like I think the other thing was like we had Jacinta, my old business partner at Emble, did a really great job on that stuff of finding really great. Like that gym was not the gym that person goes to. It was like we hunted for gyms, you know. There was a good while there where it was like we drove around. You'd be like, oh, that's a gym. We'll just go and have a look. And you'd be like, that looks like it's got brick exterior, red brick exterior. Looks fun.
Yeah, big windows. Like, what? Where is this?
Yeah, that was the vibe. Looking for that stuff.
Yeah,
location scouts and producers are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. Do you have any resources? Like, obviously, I know that's someone's role, but like, do they have any resources, or do you know of any resources that you can use to look up locations and stuff?
Well, yeah, there is. Like if you are doing commercials, I mean, this is like a little inside. I mean, like it is and it's not. It's like a little insider knowledge. I'm trying to remember the name of this thing. Well, actually, first of all, it won't really matter anyway. I was trying to remember the name of the Australian version, but do you guys know Jacob Owens?
Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff online.
Yeah, so Jacob Owens lists a bunch of his properties that, you know, he owns a lot of properties as well, not just like Prism Lens Effects. He does like basically real estate. Like he owns a lot of locations and turns them into like filming locations. Anyway, he lists a lot of his properties on this website, and Australia has a version of that website as well. Where you can just hire spaces. It's like Airbnb for film locations, and you can just hire spaces for like, not like, oh, you have to do a whole day or multiple days. It's like they hire them for half days, for whole days, for even 2 hours, some of them. So like if you have a bit that you need to create in a certain environment, so good to go on there and just like, you can just like hunt the spaces. Like you can book everything from studios to like warehouses to bedroom sets to blah, you know, like so much fun stuff on these sites. Gosh, I can't remember I'm going to look it up quickly.
I've
definitely checked out at one point, and there is UK alternatives as well that I can't remember the names of off the top of the head, but
yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of these sites out there, like,
is that right?
Peerspace, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, I found it.
Peerspace.
Cool.
That's it. Peerspace is a really fun way to find locations. I mean, I think we just found that one. A lot of the stuff, though, it's like that's a great one for finding like reasonably generic locations, but a lot of the locations that you end up, like that gym one was just like literally hustle and like look at local gym websites, and when they didn't have photos, call them, and or you'd see a few photos and be like, that kind of looks like it could be cool. Do you have big windows? Whatever, like hunting for that sort of whatever it is that you need, whether we had like storyboarded, like often Jared and I would, storyboard the most picturesque shot, huge windows, and then Jacinta would look at it and be like, where do you want this to be?
Like Greg said, I know there's alternatives, but I also know that there's a lot of photographers and filmmakers out there that use like Airbnb.
Now, it is actually a really good practice to make sure that you ask if you can film in there, because all the shoots that I've done now is like, I had done a few shoots in Airbnbs where I was like, didn't explicitly let them know that. I mean, half of the time though, we were in my own defense, we were staying there as well. So it was well, we are using it as accommodation. Yeah. But we were just filming just a couple of teeny little scenes that maybe involved 7 C-stands, a Dana dolly, a first AC, a grip, and a gas.
Yeah,
but we were staying there. So I think I've done a few of those over my time, but I think like it's definitely better to let people know, because we did get caught out once and they weren't very happy and they wanted to get location fees. And then it's not very fun to ask a client that you're trying to be really big and professional and buttoned down with and show them that you've got everything under wraps and go back to them and go, hey, can we actually have a $2,000 location fee for that location? Or you're going to have to take that out of your own profit, which sucks.
That definitely sucks.
Maybe more. I don't know what sucks more. Maybe asking them for the money sucks more, probably, because you're probably not going to get work from them again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. So that's where I was leading. Just double check the what was it? The TZs? Was that
the T's and C's?
T's and C's, man. T's and C's.
So
T's and C's, bro.
How do you feel like running a wedding business compared to running a production company? How did that set you up for doing that? Like, obviously running a photography business, you're a solopreneur with a freelance assistant or second shooter, but running a production company is a totally different thing. So was there anything that you learned in doing the photo video side of weddings that helped you set up the production company?
I mean, so much. Like, it all translates so much. And then if it doesn't translate, you learn what not to do, It's like, I think, I mean, what part do you want to know about the most? Like, I think, because I could ramble on this. I think at the end of the day, the part that transitioned the most from like weddings to commercial was probably, I don't know. It's hard to say what the biggest thing is. I mean, it's like everything from just like the operations of like with weddings, you get quite good at, I think, or I felt like I got quite good at like sticking to my price in some ways. And then also just like the regularity of like, I had the whole back end thing buttoned down, of like my accounting and all that sort of stuff was reasonably good through, just like the rinse and repeat sort of thing of weddings. It's like you have a deposit and you have your balance payment and whatever. And then like, although it did start to get a little bit different with commercials and like, especially within the production company when you're no longer dealing with like, 5 to 10 grand. It's like, sometimes, you're doing commercials upwards of 50, upwards of 100, upwards of $150,000, which is not just like by any means, oh, fuck, well, they were killing it, doing $150,000 jobs all the time. Like, that's a big project, and that involves a lot of people, just like what we were talking about before, like that $50,000 wedding with those guys. But they had like 5 to 10 dudes, and, it's like, and all the travel expenses for all those people, like, I can understand that, because we had catering budgets on jobs that were bigger than what I'd charge for a wedding, So it's a totally different space. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just like understanding the cash flow side of things is like kind of good with weddings, and you get to the point of like, okay, cool, I'm charging like $2,000 deposit, I'm charging $5,000 total, so I get my $3,000 like 2 weeks before the wedding or whatever. And it's like, okay, cool, well, you can't really do that with a big ad. You have to, okay, what are we doing? Are we doing like 30% deposit, 40% on the shoot day, 30% on the completion? How are you going to string it, So it took us a while to figure out that sort of stuff, What is the client going to be comfortable paying? They're like, well, because you go, okay, cool, we'll do a 50% deposit. And they're like, so you want us to transfer you $100,000 when you haven't done anything? Okay, well, but also sometimes that is literally what you need to get a job going, Like sometimes you can't book what you need to book without that amount of money. So it's like, I think it ranges so much, like in the commercial field, where like the scope of projects and it's vastly different, but then also in some ways the same. I think you're just dealing with you're dealing with slightly significantly less overheads in terms of like who needs to be on a project,
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have any tools then for managing your team when it comes to any sort of production? Is there specific tools that you use to keep everyone in line and informed? And if so, what are they?
Well, like I said, I've gone back freelancing. So now I'm back to being one of the team, often employed by production companies and agencies. When I was a part of Emble, and basically, and even at Phelan, we used a bunch of different tools like, we've trialed, and both in my, freelance career as well. I think programs like Monday.com for like, have you used Monday? You guys you used Monday before?
Don't use it, but I know of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Monday was pretty good for like team, project stuff. We used, Milanote, to like storyboard stuff, and collaborate on stuff. And I'd use that with, editors, set everything from edit sound to directors, other directors if I was DPing, like a variety of stuff. And then I think the biggest one that I've used across from weddings until now would be still use Studio Ninja.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely the baseline of my it's my lifeblood of me. Life would be very difficult without Studio Ninja. But yeah, still use Studio Ninja and still use PickTime. Basically, I've stayed on as an ambassador and work with PickTime, less so in a front-facing, I'm shooting weddings, use PickTime capacity, and more so in a, like I've definitely worked a lot with the guys on the back end and did a lot of stuff with their introduction of video into the platform. So
yeah,
pretty much was really involved in that. And then, just still every time I deliver images to a commercial client, they still receive them in PickTime. I think those are the two that have stayed the whole time through through weddings and into commercial, Studio Ninja and PickTime for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting because both of them are geared and marketed towards the wedding industry, but they can be used. And like we were using PicTime before they introduced video to deliver our films, just using Vimeo upload and stuff. So yeah, you can hack these pieces of software to suit the industry you're in.
The parts of PicTime that really drew me to it, I think, were just like, first of all, it's like the best way to deliver images, I think, to anyone who, whether it's a wedding client, commercial client, it's like before PicTime and these like image hosting platforms, you'd send out like a Dropbox link. How unsexy is receiving a fucking Dropbox link? I'm sorry, but Dropbox, you've been great. You've held a great space in my life for a long time, but being the first way that people see my like creations is not going to be in there. Having to see a file number and then like double click and then it enlarges and then you like click the next thing and it like takes a long time to load and sort of glitches and half goes across and you're like, this is gross. And then you're like charging like on the higher end of like, you know, of the space of photography to do these jobs and you're like, whoa, this is not how it should be. So anyway, they filled a really good gap with that. And I think also I basically used the store a bit during weddings, didn't use the store capacity as much in commercials because it engaged me to capture these images. I know that within some spaces of commercial fields, it would be really handy. Like it depends on how you want to operate. How I operate, I'm like, you've engaged me to shoot the stuff. These are your images. Yep. We share copyright over them. You cannot license them for anything other than the agreement that we have, which is I've done them for your brand. You cannot then license them to someone else's, but you can download them all for free. They're unwatermarked. They're edited. They're finished. Here you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I deliver them, allow the downloads and everything like that. The share functionality works quite good. I see people using that every now and then and stuff. But I think I think just the main thing is just being that first place that people see your work. It's your shop front, you know, like it's got to look sexy. It's got to look good. And, you know, people can just scroll through it and be in awe of how nicely it lays it all out. And, I think it's great.
Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme when we talk to people is that it's the aesthetics of how it's delivered is one of the key features.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's like it becomes difficult with video because you are in commercial world. We're delivering like waterfall content, which is like confusing and annoying and not sexy in itself because you're like 30 second 9x16, 30 second 16 by 9, 30 second 1 by 1, 30 second 4 by 5, and you're just like, okay. And then it's like 15, rinse and repeat, 6, rinse and repeat. So it's like there's a shitload of media that just like is going out on this stuff that's just like has to be filed and organized correctly. So, you know, what I am really looking forward to would be, and I don't want to speak out of turn here, but, you know, there's a certain platform that sounds sort of like Imeo that has review notes, but it would be really cool if we could have something like that on PicTime.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Sweet. Should we go into show and tell?
Let's do it. Let's talk about some of your work. So we've got some stuff on this. Can you see the screen behind this?
Yeah. Okay. So I've selected a handful of your stills, not your videos.
There is one video.
Oh, there is one video, is there?
Yeah. I think I chose this actually.
Fun. I've not seen this.
I think I chose this one in particular. There was a whole host of stuff that you sent through and that found online. But this one in particular, I felt like it was the most relatable to weddings because it's a couple and it's like, what was your approach to directing this couple? And am I right in saying that a lot of your sort of maybe couple shoot guidance would translate to something like this?
Totally, 100%. Well, yeah, I mean, where do I start? I mean, first of all, I think it was great because we were able to cast two of our friends in this piece. Rip Ride, I'm not sure if you guys know about Rip Ride. Rip Ride is sort of like essentially the biggest competitor for Airbnb here in Australia.
Right.
Like they're adventurous Airbnbs. They're cabins, off the beaten track. It's Airbnb in the wild. So anyway, basically we did this, which is the launch film for New Zealand and the US. And yeah, we were able to cast two of our friends. So it was like the double up of like them being friends of ours and also them basically basically utilizing sort of my wedding experience to give them guidance and get them comfortable and letting the sort of, getting them comfortable to a point where you just are able to let their, the natural engagement of the two people like unfold, and then capture that. Because a lot of, I think it was less, the way we shot this was less like, okay, action cut. It was like, okay, let's just like let it was a bit in like free flowing, organic, the whole shoot, we just sort of like let stuff happen and then captured it organically with in mind that we had scripted a really specific set of like our Milanote boards were really specific in terms of like what we needed, whether we needed smiles, laughter at the beach, whatever it is to create those engaging moments. And the script was pre-written and recorded as well. So
yeah,
just working with them just like you would a wedding couple to make people feel comfortable. And then when they feel comfortable, they're going to act natural with their other person. And, and then if they don't feel comfortable, you've got, it's like every, I can't remember who I saw recently, which has probably been around for a long time now, but those like prompt cards that you get, like if you're not very good at like, I know most of the photographers and videographers that I always work with had that little fun thing up their sleeve that they could use if people were feeling uncomfortable. And I still use those today on commercials. It's like, I think in this shot coming up here, they were like, okay, what do you want us to do? And I'm like, okay, Cal, I'm going to be far enough away. We're not going to use the audio. Cal's the guy, by the way. I'm like, we're not going to be able to hear you. I want you to just say something really, really naughty and nasty in Meg's ear. Just something that is going to make her lose it. And then I'm just back here and I just wait for him to say it. And then all of a sudden it's like this amazing, gorgeous laughter moment. There it is right there on the screen it was. So, yeah. I think using those little hacks that you have in weddings to keep people like comfortable.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking, because a lot of people think, I don't want to do commercial work because it's just talking head and it's boring stuff. But so much of what we do in weddings can translate. There's brands out there that will want essentially a couple shoot for their promo video. Like that's what it almost breaks down as.
Mm-hmm. And then like I think that I've actually watched a few of those ads and just thought that director sucks at working with couples. Like, unless it is like two professional actors. And then even if it is two professional actors, it's up to you as the director to like get them to engage, feel comfortable, do their thing. Like like even if they are really good at their profession of acting, like if you're not good at yours and helping them feel comfortable in front of the camera and engage with each other, like then that's partially, you can't blame it on someone else. It's got to be, you're ultimately deciding what's happening visually. So, yeah.
We haven't really talked to you about equipment. And obviously, we've all got our own equipment as when filmmakers, when photographers, but what kind of gear are you taking to a shoot like this?
I'm interested to know what you think that was shot on.
Well, I know you've had a Nikon ambassadorship at some point, right? So, I don't know. No,
like not knowing the level of production that this was, I'd guess something like maybe a Blackmagic.
Yeah, that was Pocket 6K, and so all the overhead and stuff was like A7S3.
I was thinking Sony, but
yeah, A7S3 is like a lot of the A7S3 is most of the gimbal shots. We pretty much would just run the 6K handheld. I pretty much operate like that now. If I'm like running a tight ship, I'll still, if I just need a cheeky gimbal shot, I'll just do it on the A7S3 and just slot it in. But now shooting with Red Komodo X pretty much entirely. And then, shot everything that I've released on Zine lenses for the last, 2 years of being with those guys. So, and they're awesome set of lenses that they've just been so good in terms of like, you get the character of like a sort of old school lens, but then it's like clean enough that it's not too clinical, but you also get this little bit of character. You get a little bit of lens flares and stuff, and they're really nice lenses to use. So, but I think this might have actually been shot on. This was pre me working with Zine, and that's shot on Leica R's, I think.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you always manual focusing?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Unless the gimbal shot's on the Sony, you know what I mean? Like that's on the Sony, I'm pretty sure, that little push in.
Oh, yeah, right.
Just back a little bit, that tiny little thing. But yeah. Yeah, pretty much manual focusing the whole time. I learnt to shoot weddings on this lens. I don't know if you guys can see. Oh yeah, there we go. Do you know what lens that is?
At this distance I can't tell, but yeah.
I can't see it properly. Yeah, can't see it.
You can't see it?
We're quite far away from the monitor.
Oh,
tiny monitor.
yeah. Okay, you have to look later.
Okay.
No, it's a Carl Zeiss 50mm 1.4 planar, and I learnt to make wedding films with that lens, and then had it tattooed on me forever since I sort of. Basically, I think I sold that lens and then later realized how much I loved it. And I bought another one back, and then we used the Zeisses on the Blackmagic for a little while. But yeah, beautiful lens. Learnt to shoot video with it, and I think it inspired a lot of my style. It just in terms of how smooth that metal Have you guys got any Zeiss planars?
It's funny because that was actually my very first lens when I decided I'm going to shoot video. Yeah. I'm going to buy, it was a less 35mm adapter to an EX3 Sony camcorder, and I had that Zeiss 50.
I think I remember buy another one.
It was
get another one. They're so good. They look amazing. They look incredible. Really?
Yeah, but you were talking about the build. I remember that cold metal feel and the smooth, it was fully manual. Just fucking
felt like a proper lens.
It felt like a proper lens.
Oh,
I was so happy
and it
with
just
that
feels
purchase.
as well you could drop that thing and it would be totally fine.
Yes.
Not that you wanted to, because they were. I remember buying it thinking that was an expensive lens, and then now I've used way more expensive lenses. But at the time, I was like, "Wow, that's an expensive 50mm." And then, anyway, shot weddings with it for ages. And then even when I was, because I was shooting wedding films with that lens on a 5D3, I think, and then on a 5D3 with that lens and. Yes, so fun. So just so fun and nice to use. And then I've just always enjoyed those as soon as I go on cine lenses, I'm just I don't even use if I'm handheld, I don't even use a focus puller. What do you call them? Follow focus. I don't even use a follow focus. I'm just so used to holding the lens from shooting so many weddings with that Zeiss. I'm just I know exactly how far to turn, if I need to pull from here to here, I know that I can nail that, without even looking at the monitor nearly, when I've used a lens so much. And I don't think you get that feeling with the follow focus.
Yeah.
Bam. God, I do miss that lens. What did I do with that? I must have sold it for something. And now, as I tell every podcast guest, I'm an autofocus guy now.
Oh, yeah.
Which I feel so. I became an
no
autofocus
shame.
guy.
It works really well.
No,
it works great.
It's amazing.
Don't be ashamed.
I'm not ashamed. I'm okay. It's more like when I'm down the aisle and the bride's walking towards me. That's the moment where I'm like, I want to make sure. But I went to autofocus. So the reason I went autofocus was because, well, when we moved to Sony, it was actually reliable.
Yeah.
And I wasn't using an external monitor. And so I was looking at the back of this LCD screen, and it's just so small. But now we've kind of built up the rig a little bit. I've got a monitor. So now I'm like...
Last year you went back to a bit more manual.
I did.
But those new Sony lenses are not made for manual focusing.
No, they're not made for manual. I've tried with them on manual as well. And I mean, there is a way to do it though, I think. Like I've shot a few projects where I've used just to jump around for a second, that 50mm Carl Zeiss lens. I was shooting I started shooting multimedia weddings with it. So I was shooting stills with it as well. So I also got really good at manual focusing, not only video, where you can sort of bounce, you can when a little bit past the eye line, you can come back, you can bounce and you're like, didn't quite nail it. Photos, you're like, holy shit, I'm shooting a documentary thing, and you're shooting manual focus. But it was cool to learn that, and because it's that's what people used to do. Before we had this autofocus that we're talking about now, people would manually focus in war zones, in whatever.
True.
And it wasn't just and fuck, the camera would at least beep at you. It would be like, boop, when you hit focus. So then you'd know, the cameras didn't do that then. You had this weird, shitty little, the classic film thing where it's okay, line up the thingo. And you're it's the worst way to focus. I don't know. It's pretty difficult. I find that not a good way to focus. But yeah, the autofocus thing, I agree. The monitor's so small, and if it works really well, it's why would you not do it? But yeah, the Sony's, I've shot this film on the 50-1.2. Such a beautiful lens, such a nice lens to use. But yeah, same thing. That focus by wire. Is it focus by wire? Focus by wire? Yeah,
a fly by wire.
Focus fly by wire. So yeah, so the electronic thing with the Sony is just not. It just bounces around too much. But I think the way that I learned to use it was set it into a place and be able to manual focus, you not trying to do big throws, just tiny movements. So then your handheld movement would move with it or whatever. Let your subject float in and out of that space, I suppose.
Yeah. Because there's a good few shots in that film there where it's very clear that you are very relaxed and the focus very comes in and out. Yeah. It's got this really nice aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
I'd always tried to shoot weddings the same way, where you float handheld, letting stuff float organically in and out. But it's weird because I couldn't describe to you what it is that I really In some cases, I could look at a shot and I'd be like, oh, yeah, I intentionally did this or whatever. But I couldn't describe to you what's different in terms of, I see some people try to do floaty handheld stuff. And I'm like, it's you're being too active on the focusing. Be less active, if someone's going to float out of focus, let them float back in, or let them continue floating out of focus and end the shot, Don't try and chase the dragon. Stop trying to chase the dragon.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. Relax. Actually, the only reason I'm autofocus really is because when I'm working with photographers and I want to get my shot, it's a lot faster for me to just be like boop and then I'm out. Yeah, but that's it. Anyway, let's have a look at some of your stills. I want to know the story and your thoughts on these. So the reason I picked this one up is because I've never tried putting a light on a drone before and taking a still, but I've seen it being done a few times, and I really like the aesthetics. In fact, there was forgive me, I can't remember.
Can I stop you real quick? Because it's actually not a light on a drone.
Yeah, that's from
not.
the ground going up, isn't it?
It's from the ground going up.
Yeah.
Is it really? Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, tell me about this then before I make any wrong assumptions. Like an asshole.
No, that's actually just at Dark Mofo, which is like a festival in Tasmania run by Mona Museum. Really cool, like museum of old and new art in Tasmania. And quite world renowned over the last 10 years of however long it's been going, probably 15 now. But they have this festival, really cool setup, and I just was like, knew that this sort of candlelit lighting thing was happening. Yeah. And I just had in my mind this shot of lining up someone with the beam.
Yeah. Yeah. So were you there just
basically the beam is like another pardon?
Were you there just attending the festival, or were you hired for something on this?
I've shot it a number of times. First time I shot it just like renegade, and I remember like early days trying to like get into shooting some fun stuff like this, and I was like trying to go from one area to another for shooting this parade thing, and I had my camera and stuff in a little bag, and running through this gate, and this guy was like, "You can't come in here," and I'm like, "I'm shooting for this magazine. My boss is going to be really mad." He's like, "Oh, okay," and let me through. I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" And just like went in and kept shooting. But yeah, so that was my first few goes of shooting. Mofo was sort of similar to that. Was just getting into places with the camera, and then I ended up doing an ad for Qantas and Tourism Tas there with a guy named Jared Singh, who you guys might also know.
Not sure if I do.
Nope, that name does not ring a bell.
He's Australian dude. Used to shoot some weddings mostly. Now shoots commercial as well.
Okay.
But yeah.
We'll look him up.
Jared Seng, Seng.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, I thought this was a drone. There you go.
So what do you want to do with a drone? You were talking about you've always wanted to put a light in a drone.
I've always wanted to put. So
everyone's dream. Who doesn't want to put a light on a drone?
So I saw this image of a valley being painted, and I cannot remember the location. And sorry,
Ruben. His name's Ruben.
All right,
Ruben.
Dude, his name's Ruben. I think you're thinking of Ruben immediately when you're saying the valley being painted. This guy's name's Ruben. He's huge on Ruben.
It might well be. But it was just this lovely nighttime valley shot being lit up by different, he'd flown the drone over, and it was obviously a long exposure. He had flown the drone over and lit up these individual sections, and it just looked really fucking cool. And I've always wanted to do that with a couple, and you can,
You should do it. Is it this guy who does these sorts of? Oh, I've got to get rid of
it. It might be. I can't. It's so far away. Greg, we need a bigger monitor.
Get your screen closer. It's REUBN. REUBN. Oh, UBEN. So like Ruben with an E between.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, he does awesome work. I've followed this guy for so long, and then now he's doing the GIFs and stuff. He's doing he's turned them into GIFs, and like have a look at that one that's like maybe the fifth post, the center when it turns on, and then the glow comes up the valley and stuff. It's
that's the one. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's the one.
Yes, man.
I mean, you should absolutely do that with a wedding client. Apart from that, probably took him.
I was going to say
like 8 hours or something out there in that valley.
Yeah, the time. I mean, man,
just AI.
But hey, get them to come and do the bit with them first, and then reverse engineer it. Then they can piece out, and then you go the rest of the way.
Yeah,
until you realize there's a water bottle in the back of the shot, and you have to fucking redo the whole thing.
Hell yeah. Ruben, I want you on my podcast. Cool. Right. Next image. Yeah, I really like this image. Part of me was because in Scotland, like, we have beautiful lochs, but they're cold as fuck, and they're brown. I'm assuming they're brown because of all the peat that we have in our soil. I could be wrong in that, I suppose, but yeah, you have this lovely image of this woman swimming in relatively clear water in what looks like Italy or somewhere off the coast of
Cinque Terre.
Oh, there you go. What was your thoughts for this image? Why did you create it? And how did you create it?
Well, that is...
Are you going to tell me you didn't take this picture?
No, I did. It's my it's an ex-girlfriend of mine, but also very talented photographer, Jessie McCall. Okay. She's actually an underwater photographer, and so we're out. Basically, I was like, I had this picture in my mind, and so I used her underwater gear to create it. But yeah, I always just sort of like saw this coastline and how close the houses and such a sort of significant coastline, like significant kind of like recognizable area is to the water. And I was like, I think that this is possible to do. And then we were there, basically. We didn't go there with the intention of creating this photograph, but while we were there, I was thinking about it, and we went to a number of these kind of coastal towns. And each time I was like getting in the water being like, is it deep enough? It's not deep enough. You can see rocks in the bottom, and sort of was thinking about it and whatever. And then I just kind of kept on, you just have those images in your mind and you're like, fuck, I really want to make that one day. And then we just found the spot, went in the water here, and it was just like super nice. Sort of, we were in the water at the perfect time too. Like high light really works well. Yeah. It's like the opposite of like shooting above the water. Like high light for underwater photography is just like so good. Like the contrast and stuff you get, it's like a softbox from above, but and then the later it gets murkier and harder to see unless you're sort of shooting. I feel like if you're shooting side light, like side late afternoon light, it works really good. But like backlight, awesome above ground, terrible in the water,
Yeah.
So anyway, we were there at a great time and everything just aligned, and we shot this thing, and I've still got it hanging. I've got a 2-meter printed version of that in my house, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Are you, when you're shooting underwater like this, obviously your camera's in the housing, are you relying on autofocus at that point, or again are you manual?
I think I did manual.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
I think I did manual on this one.
I mean,
well, because the one thing about it is that if you're doing autofocus, sometimes autofocus, but like if you're doing autofocus on a over-under, very difficult to get focus with autofocus when you're doing over-under. And we didn't even have a proper dome with us because we were traveling. So no dome, got that shot, just sort of a few bursts, few jumps, few bursts. And yeah, so like obviously the camera lens is like, it's a normal, it wasn't, the lens wasn't right up against the port, but nowhere near as far away as a dome. When you have a big dome like that, you've got like you've got a way more margin for error to get that center line happening.
Yeah. Okay.
But on the small housing and the small port, it's just took a lot of bursts, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. What f-stop are you at? Because it must be pretty closed. Hello?
Sorry, froze up a little bit there.
Oh,
sorry. Greg's accidentally switched the phone.
I didn't know you had another question.
I had another question about it. I was going to say, for underwater stuff, what kind of f-stop are you looking to shoot at? Because everything in that image was pretty crispy.
Yeah, it was probably like f8 or higher, probably f8 or something like that. But also you don't want to go too shallow because you pick up too much stuff in between the camera and the lens.
Yeah.
So if you're like f11, everything, like all your random grit, unless you're in super clean water, like you're going to get little grits and bits in between the camera and the subject.
Yeah.
So you want to be sort of like, I think it might have been like F8 or something like that. So it's like not too stopped down, but the buildings are still looking good. So I mean, if you zoom in, they're a bit out of focus comparatively, but.
Sure. I mean, I mean, the whole kind of image is not like pin sharp. I like that about it.
Totally.
So this next image, everyone knows I like a wee cheeky bum. But there's a few times where you do shoot top down, and I kind of just wanted to hear your thoughts on this image. Why, like, was this a project that you were working on? Is this a commercial?
That was actually a accommodation shoot. Just an accommodation. And definitely didn't have, normally I've done a few things like this on commercials with like proper C-stand, remote the camera. But on this, I was standing, I think, on top of the railing thing on the right-hand side, holding onto the gutter on the roof, which I broke a tiny little bit, and holding the camera out with 20 mil.
Holy shit. I mean, that's pretty... I mean, was there much... like, you're dealing with a lot of straight lines in both directions.
Well,
vertical lines. Are you... Like, how much post-production did you do on an image like this when you're...
Just tried to get it as straight as possible. This goes back to the wedding, the whole like shooting weddings thing first. It's like, oh, you want to get a cool like top down shot? Well, like, guess what? You're not going to have like overhead rig that you can flip the camera and a dolly and whatever to do your sliding shot. So you just hold it up there and you just try and do the slide as close as you can and like a little bit fix it in post, a little bit try and remove some margins of error. Like this for me was like, okay, rather than holding it up there and trying to shoot down, what can I do to basically, eliminate as much of that like straight line fudgery that happens while I get above it and look down at it, or I got the screen. So I'm like sort of looking at it. I can sort of see my like turn the rotation marker thing on, and then like you can sort of get it as close as possible, and then like, tweak up those lines and post. Also shoot a bit wider, so you can like crop it in. And tweak up, then straighten up those lines a little bit. Was on a 20mm 1.8, so. Okay.
And are you shooting wide open? I mean, I know it's nighttime.
That would have been wide. That was definitely wide open.
So are you using autofocus for a shot like that? If you're like reaching out in an awkward position, or?
That was autofocus for sure. That would have been autofocus 1.8.
Yeah. Okay. I really, really liked it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that was the last of the show and tells.
In wrapping up, do you have anything to leave our listeners with to like inspire them, whether that's like a TV show you recommend or a book recommendation? What should our listeners go and check out?
Book. Everyone should probably read or listen to, in my case. ADHD can find it very difficult sitting through full books, but I listen to a crap load of Audible, like listen to my books on online. So while I'm doing my driving that I do. Anyway, Rick Rubin's The Creative Act, I think, is like an absolute must for anyone. I think if you're in a creative field, it's like, I recently just got challenged by my coach. He was like, basically was like, you need to read this book. And I was like, well, I've listened to it 3 times. I've wrote a bunch of notes. And he's like, you need to buy the book and ruin it. And I'm like, what do you mean ruin it? He's like, draw in it, rip pages out, put markers on it, all sorts of stuff. So
yeah.
Cool.
That's
so
we started that on one of our last weddings that we shot last year.
Hang on, I'm just gonna make this announcement. There is a fire alarm happening in this building. It's a practice. If you're hearing this while driving the car, it's not a siren. You do not need to pull over. Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking that. I was like, are we gonna mention
What's happening?
Yeah.
So
That's a good recommendation. That book.
I was like, do you guys need to go?
It's fine. They practice every Wednesday, but they're
Every Wednesday. What, like the choir's on Wednesday, so is the smoke alarms. They practice every Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. The creative act, the way of being. You can
dude, you've got it. Have you read this?
We've started it in audiobook.
You've started it,
but only got like maybe 40 minutes in or something. Like we're not far through.
Stick it out. He's just so good. He's literally a creative genius. He's a bloody wizard. And I think having the book and then my coach told me to ruin it and but the cool thing about having the book is you flip to random pages and it's sort of like, I did this with a book of, do you know about Rumi, the poet? He sort of did a lot of concepts of like duality. So listen to it. I basically used to read it. I had this book of Rumi, and the cool thing about Rumi, just like this Rick Rubin book, was you could open to any page and read a paragraph or a poem. Same with Rick Rubin. You can open to a chapter, and the chapter's like 3 pages long, and then you just find yourself so often you'll open to a page and you're like, I was meant to read that today. I needed that. Or like you just have these moments where you're like, I seem to have them all the time opening up that book where I'm like, that's exactly what I needed to read right now.
Yeah.
And that has just unlocked this next thing that I was like worried about quoting on, trying to think about how I'm going to execute whatever it is, like some of sorry to ramble on this one, but I'll give you one little, because I actually have them right here. Where are we? Yeah, like some of my quotes, I write them down and draw them into like little, I've started drawing them into like little things. Like if aiming to create works that are exceptional, most rules don't apply. Rules direct us to average behavior. And I just draw these like little things.
Cool.
Anyway, just like
nice.
I'm not great at drawing at all. And then like the best artists are those with a sensitive antenna, because he's like talking about being sensitive to different stuff, whether it's like, anything. Anyway, I just love all these little quotes. They're so good. You can use them. You can think about them and apply them to your own life really well. And then the other thing, I think that if you are making films, you should probably go out and watch The Tree of Life, Song to Song, Knight of Cups, and every other Emmanuel Lubetsky and what's his name? Oh my gosh. I've totally
Terrence
spaced.
Malick?
Terrence Malick. You should watch every Terrence Malick film. Every Terrence Malick film that has been shot with Emmanuel Lubetsky, and just go and absorb what the best cinematography that exists looks like basically.
I have not heard of Knight of Cups.
It's great to go back and revisit because I think he just releases them. He releases random ones and you just like have no idea that they're out. Like they don't go to normal cinemas. They play in like one cinema in the world. So they're like eligible for like an award, like an award, the award ceremonies and stuff. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So
is Knight of Cups, is that a Terrence Malick film as well?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. You can tell instantly because he loves wide-angle lenses. Like that's his thing.
Oh yeah,
which
absolutely.
Which for someone
it's like
who
every. Yeah,
sorry, on you go. There might be a little bit of a delay. I was just going to say, for if you're a wedding filmmaker and you're using wide-angle lenses, I'm sure the photographer does in fact hate you.
Yeah.
But what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just like, yeah, I mean, I love all of his work and I think it's really inspired me. Yeah, the wide angle lenses, some of them are more apparent in some of them than others, but I think like the Tree of Life, I think it was the Tree of Life. They shot 100 and something days at like sunrise and sunset and just used no lighting equipment. And like there's BTS shots of like Terrence pushing like Emmanuel Lubetsky like down the street in a shopping cart. Like it was so lo-fi how they shot it. And I just loved that stuff.
Yeah.
I just am like, that is awesome. And then they've got like, you know, Brad Pitt and like, you know, there's like it's not an art house film with unknown actors. It's like these are big actors that are in all of these things. And it's sort of like it's like a pin of honor to get in one of his films, I feel like, if you're acting in Hollywood, you know?
Yeah.
The man's a genius. So, yeah, get out there and get the eyeballs and start absorbing that stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. Night of Cups. Christian Bale, by the way. Christian Bale. All right.
So
cool.
Where can people find your work online if they want to check out more of your stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just at Andrew Hardy on Instagram where I'm most active. And I say most active, I haven't actually been that active for a little while. I haven't been posting a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm probably more active there than anywhere else, other than in real life. Very active in real life. Basically there. And then andyhardy.co is my website. And if you ever want to reach out, have a chat, have a yarn, my email address is on my website. If you want to email me, I'll reach out on Instagram, and I'll always love having a chat. I've ended up mentoring, I do private mentoring still, even though I'm not doing heaps of stuff with my online course at the moment, haven't been for a little while, but still do one-on-one mentoring with people for business and creative business, all that sort of stuff that I do. So yeah,
cool. Very cool, man. Like I said earlier, you don't have any wedding work online, unless, do you? I know it'll be old.
Well, I do, but it's very hidden. So I'll send you a link to a few. I'll send you a link to a few things that I keep hidden, tucked away. But yeah. I try not to. I basically just stopped advertising and just only do friends, family, and past wedding clients like work. Really, you know, just like people who know me, and I have some stuff tucked away from that. But
anyway, I'm just a nosy bastard. That's all. I'm just a nosy bastard. But yes, thank you for coming online with us today. People can find us at perspectivebycinemate.com is our website. Instagram and YouTube at Perspective by Cinemate as well. Thank you to Pick Time for sponsoring this episode. Subscribe and follow wherever you get podcasts, and we'll see you in the next one. However,
in the meantime,
enjoy your life.